The Beginning of an Adventure. Chapter 1. The Dream. Once upon a time, in a small town, there lived a boy named Jack. Jack was different from other kids. While they played football or video games, Jack spent his time looking at the stars. He dreamed of traveling to distant galaxies, exploring unknown planets, and meeting alien life. Every night, Jack would sit by his window with his telescope, watching the stars twinkle in the dark sky. He often wondered, what is out there? Are we alone in the universe? Jack's dream was to become an astronaut. He wanted to travel far beyond Earth, into the deep, dark space. He read books about space, watched documentaries, and learned everything he could about the universe. Jack's room was full of posters of rockets, planets, and stars. He even had a model of the solar system hanging from his ceiling. Chapter 2. The Opportunity. One day, while Jack was at school, he saw a poster on the notice board. The poster said, NASA is looking for young astronauts for a special mission. Apply now. Jack's heart skipped a beat. This was his chance. He rushed home after school and told his parents about the mission. His parents were surprised, but also very proud. They knew how much Jack loved space, so they agreed to help him apply. Jack filled out the application form with great care. He wrote about his love for space, his knowledge of the planets, and his dream to travel to distant galaxies. A few weeks later, Jack received a letter from NASA. He had been selected for an interview. Jack couldn't believe it. He was one step closer to his dream. Chapter 3. The Training. Jack traveled to NASA with his parents for the interview. The NASA team was impressed with Jack's knowledge and passion for space. After a long interview process, Jack was chosen for the mission. He was over the moon with excitement. The next few months were full of training. Jack learned how to operate a spaceship, how to handle zero gravity, and how to live in space for a long time. The training was tough, but Jack was determined. He wanted to be the best astronaut he could be. He made new friends during the training, and they all shared the same dream of exploring space. Jack's favorite part of the training was the simulated spacewalks. He would put on his space suit and float in a large pool that was made to feel like space. It was hard work, but Jack loved every moment of it. Chapter 4. The Launch. Finally, the day of the launch arrived. Jack and his team were ready. They had trained hard, and now it was time to go on their mission. The mission was to travel to a distant galaxy and explore a planet that no one had ever visited before. Jack's parents were there to see him off. They hugged him tightly and told him how proud they were. Jack smiled and promised to be careful. He was a little nervous, but mostly he was excited. This was what he had always dreamed of. The team climbed into the spaceship, and the countdown began. 10, 9, 8, Jack's heart was racing. 7, 6, 5, he looked out of the window and saw the sky. 4, 3, 2, he could feel the power of the engines. 1. Liftoff. The spaceship shook as it lifted off the ground and soared into the sky. Jack looked out of the window as the Earth grew smaller and smaller. Soon, they were in space. The stars were brighter, and the Earth was just a blue dot in the distance. Jack was finally living his dream. Chapter 5. The Journey. The journey to the distant galaxy was long. The team spent many days traveling through space. They passed by the Moon, Mars, and other planets in our solar system. Jack spent his time looking out of the window, amazed by the beauty of space. He could see the Milky Way, a huge cluster of stars that looked like a river of light. The team also had to work hard during the journey. They checked the spaceship's systems, made sure everything was working correctly, and prepared for their arrival at the distant planet. Jack's job was to monitor the communication systems. He made sure they could stay in contact with NASA and send back information about their journey. One day, while Jack was on duty, the spaceship's radar picked up something unusual. It was a signal, but not from Earth. Jack called the team together. They all listened to the strange signal. It was a series of beeps and tones, something they had never heard before. Could it be an alien signal? One of the team members asked. Jack's heart was pounding. This was what he had always dreamed of: contact with alien life. The team decided to change their course and follow the signal. They didn't know where it would lead them, but they were ready for an adventure. As they traveled closer to the source of the signal, the stars seemed to grow brighter. The team was excited, but also a little scared. They didn't know what to expect. Jack couldn't help but wonder, are we really going to meet aliens? Chapter 6. The Unknown Planet. After following the signal for several days, the team finally arrived at the source. It was a planet, far from any known galaxy. The planet was large and blue, with swirling clouds and deep oceans. It looked peaceful, but the team knew they had to be careful. They decided to land on the planet and explore. Jack put on his space suit and prepared for the landing. As they descended, the spaceship shook, and Jack held his breath. They landed safely, and the team stepped out onto the surface of the planet. The ground was soft, and the air was filled with a strange, sweet smell. The sky was a deep purple, and the sun was much larger and brighter than the one on Earth. Jack looked around in awe. This was a completely new world. The team began to explore the planet, collecting samples and taking notes. They found strange plants that glowed in the dark and rocks that sparkled like diamonds, but there was no sign of any life. Just as they were about to return to the spaceship, Jack heard something. It was a faint sound, like a whisper. He turned around and saw something moving in the distance. It was small and quick, disappearing behind a rock. Jack called the team over. They all watched as the creature appeared again. It was like nothing they had ever seen before. It was small, with big eyes and glowing skin. It looked at them curiously, but didn't seem afraid. Could this be the source of the signal? Jack wondered. The team slowly approached the creature, but before they could get close, it ran away, disappearing into the distance. Jack's heart was racing. They had discovered a new form of life. But what did it want? Why did it send the signal? The team decided to follow the creature, hoping to find answers. Chapter 7: Into the Unknown. Jack and his team watched as the mysterious creature disappeared into the distance. They knew they had to follow it. The creature might be the key to understanding this unknown planet and the strange signal they had received. With their hearts pounding, they set off, following the faint tracks left by the creature. The landscape of the planet was unlike anything they had ever seen. The ground was covered in soft, blue grass that glowed faintly in the dark. Strange trees with twisted branches reached up to the purple sky, their leaves shimmering like jewels. The air was thick and sweet, and every breath felt heavy in their lungs. As they walked, Jack couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and fear. They were venturing into the unknown, with no idea what they might find. But Jack was determined. This was the adventure he had always dreamed of, and he wasn't going to turn back now. Chapter 8: The Ancient City. After hours of walking, the team reached the edge of a vast valley. Below them, they saw something incredible, a city, ancient and mysterious, hidden in the depths of the planet. The buildings were tall and made of smooth, shining stone. Strange symbols were carved into the walls, symbols that looked like they might tell a story if only they could be understood. The city was silent, with no signs of life. The team descended into the valley, eager to explore. As they entered the city, they felt a strange sense of awe. This place was old, much older than anything on Earth. It felt like it had been abandoned for a very long time. Jack led the team through the empty streets, past tall towers and grand halls. They found no signs of the creature they had seen earlier, but the feeling that they were being watched never left them. The deeper they went into the city, the stronger the feeling became. Finally, they reached the center of the city. There, they found a large, circular building with a door that was slightly open. Jack pushed the door open, and they stepped inside. In the center of the room was a large, round table. On the table was a strange device, unlike anything they had ever seen. It was made of metal, with many small lights and buttons. The device hummed quietly, and Jack realized that this was the source of the signal they had been following. As they approached the device, they heard a noise behind them. They turned around and saw the creature standing in the doorway. It was not alone. Behind it were many more creatures, all of them watching the team with their large, glowing eyes. Chapter 9: The First Contact. The creatures slowly entered the room, surrounding the team. Jack felt his heart race, but he forced himself to stay calm. The creatures didn't seem hostile. They were just curious. One of the creatures, the one they had seen earlier, stepped forward. It made a series of soft, musical sounds like a language. Jack didn't understand the sounds, but he knew they had to communicate. He slowly reached out his hand, showing the creature that he meant no harm. The creature hesitated, then reached out its own small, glowing hand. When their hands touched, Jack felt a strange warmth, like an electric current passing through him. The creature made more sounds, and Jack realized it was trying to communicate. The creature pointed to the device on the table, then to the symbols on the walls. It was trying to tell them something, but Jack couldn't understand. Suddenly, the device on the table began to glow brighter. The symbols on the walls started to move, rearranging themselves into patterns. Jack watched in amazement as the symbols formed pictures that told a story. The pictures showed a time long ago when the planet was full of life. The creatures had built the city, and they lived in peace. But then something terrible happened. A great darkness came over the planet, and the creatures were forced to hide. They sent out a signal, hoping that someone would find them and help them. The last picture showed the arrival of the spaceship, and Jack realized that they were the ones who had been called to help. The creatures were asking for their help to save their planet. Chapter 10: The Mission. Jack and his team understood what they had to do. The creatures needed their help to stop the darkness and bring life back to the planet. But how could they do it? They didn't have the technology or the knowledge to solve such a big problem. The creature that had first approached Jack led them to another room in the building. Inside, they found a large, ancient machine. The creature pointed to the machine, then to the symbols on the walls. The symbols seemed to show how the machine worked, but it was written in the creature's language, and Jack couldn't read it. The team realized that the machine was the key to saving the planet, but they needed to figure out how to operate it. They spent hours studying the symbols, trying to understand the instructions. The creatures watched them, offering help when they could. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they figured it out. The machine was designed to harness the power of the planet's core. It could create energy that would drive away the darkness and bring life back to the planet. But it needed to be activated manually, and it was a dangerous process. Jack volunteered to do it. He knew the risks, but he also knew that this was the adventure he had always wanted. The team worked together to prepare the machine. For activation, they made sure everything was in place and that they understood the steps they needed to follow. The creatures watched silently, their glowing eyes full of hope. Chapter 11: The Final Challenge. With the machine ready, Jack stood before it, feeling the weight of the mission on his shoulders. He knew that this was a moment that would change everything, not just for him, but for the entire planet. Taking a deep breath, Jack stepped up to the control panel and began the activation sequence. As he pressed the buttons and pulled the levers, the machine roared to life. The ground beneath them trembled, and the walls of the ancient building glowed with an intense light. The symbols on the walls started to spin faster, and the device in the center of the room emitted a powerful hum. But then something went wrong. The machine began to overheat, and warning lights flashed all over the control panel. Jack's heart pounded as he realized that they were running out of time. If the machine overheated, it could explode, destroying the entire city and everyone in it. Jack quickly communicated with the team. They had to cool the machine down, but the controls were complex, and they didn't have much time. The creatures, sensing the danger, began to help. They moved quickly, using their knowledge of the ancient technology to assist the team. With everyone working together, they managed to stabilize the machine, but they weren't out of danger yet. The final step required someone to manually connect to cables deep within the machine's core. It was a dangerous task, and only one person could do it. Jack volunteered again. He knew the risks, but he was determined to see the mission through. The team helped him suit up in protective gear, and he climbed into the machine's core. The heat was intense, and the noise was deafening, but Jack focused on the task at hand. Slowly, carefully, Jack made his way to the connection point. The cables were sparking with energy, and one wrong move could be fatal. With steady hands, Jack reached out and connected the cables. There was a flash of light, and for a moment, everything went silent. Chapter 12: The New Dawn. Jack held his breath as he waited to see what would happen. Then, slowly, the machine began to hum again, but this time, the sound was different. It was a low, steady pulse, like the heartbeat of the planet. The walls glowed with a soft, warm light, and the symbols on the walls slowed to a gentle spin. Jack climbed out of the machine, his heart still racing. The team and the creatures were waiting for him. The creatures' eyes were wide with wonder, and Jack realized that they had done it. The machine was working, and the planet was coming back to life. The team and the creatures watched as the ground around the city began to change. The blue grass grew taller and brighter, and flowers bloomed in every color imaginable. The twisted trees straightened, their leaves shimmering with new life. The air grew fresher, and the sky, once a deep purple, turned a bright, clear blue. The darkness that had covered the planet was gone, replaced by a warm, golden light. The creatures cheered, their musical voices filling the air. Jack and his team smiled, knowing that they had saved the planet and its inhabitants. Chapter 13: The Farewell. With their mission complete, it was time for Jack and his team to return to Earth. The creatures, now full of life and happiness, gathered to say goodbye. They had formed a special bond with the team, and it was hard to leave. The creature that had first approached Jack stepped forward. It placed a small, glowing crystal in Jack's hand. The creature made a soft, musical sound that Jack understood without needing words. The crystal was a gift, a piece of the planet's heart, to remember them by. Jack thanked the creature, feeling a deep sense of connection to this strange and wonderful world. He knew that he would never forget the adventure they had shared. The team boarded their spaceship, and with a final wave to the creatures, they took off into the sky. As they left the planet's atmosphere, they looked back at the world below. It was no longer a place of darkness, but a vibrant, living planet, full of hope and new beginnings. Chapter 14: The Return Home. The journey back to Earth was filled with reflection. Jack and his team talked about everything they had experienced: the discovery of the ancient city, the mysterious creatures, and the mission to save the planet. They knew that what they had done would be remembered for generations. When they finally returned to Earth, they were greeted as heroes. News of their journey had spread, and people from all over the world wanted to hear their story. Jack felt proud, not just for himself, but for his team and the creatures they had helped. NASA held a special ceremony to honor Jack and his team. They were awarded medals for their bravery and dedication. But for Jack, the greatest reward was the knowledge that they had made a difference. They had traveled to distant galaxies, met new life forms, and saved a planet from destruction. Chapter 15: The Future. Life returned to normal for Jack, but he knew that he was forever changed. He still loved to look at the stars, but now, when he gazed up at the night sky, he felt a deep connection to the universe. He knew that out there, among the stars, was a planet that he had helped save, and creatures who remembered him. Jack continued to study space, always eager to learn more about the universe. He gave talks about his journey, inspiring others to follow their dreams. And every now and then, he would take out the glowing crystal that the creature had given him, and he would remember the incredible adventure he had lived. The space journey was over, but for Jack, it was only the beginning. The universe was vast and full of mysteries, and he knew that one day he would return to the stars, ready for the next great adventure. The end.